has just been, not good.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Well, hello.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. We are in the middle of a war, although if you listen to the right, it's not a war. When you attack another country, that's just a small military excursion.
I think they're right. I think that if the United States got bombed several times with 30,000-pound bombs, we wouldn't consider that a war.
No, if our nuclear facilities for energy were bombed, we'd think like, oh, a small military excursion, no big deal at all, right? Yeah, and so a lot of misconceptions to clarify, and mainstream media, look guys, we tell you things and then it happens. You can see it with your own eyes. We told you they're good cop, bad cop. I've said it 1,000 times, I just did a jubilee about it, right? And so whenever Trump does something that the donors like, boom, they'll all rally around him. And you're gonna see it spectacularly today. MSNBC, CNN, along with Fox News. Atta boy, Donald Trump! Way to please the donors. The donors are very, very happy today. They've got another thing that they paid for, a giant war. Now, of course, they paid the politicians a nickel and a dime. We're gonna have to pay the bills of the whole war. But we're gonna give you all the details, tell you what's happening and how it could affect our economy and so many other things, and obviously Operation Hope, okay?
Come on, Cenk, come on.
Even in the midst of this, I never lose hope. Well, okay, all right, Casper.
I'm as black-pilled as can be, so look, out of all the people in the world, something that Tucker Carlson said recently is just seared in my mind and I can't stop thinking about it, which is, do we really live in a democracy when you have agreement on both sides of the political aisle among the electorate in not wanting to engage in a regime change war, and you still hear Trump flirting about the idea of doing it anyway? This is not a democracy. The people don't matter. This is not a partisan issue. Doesn't matter if we're talking about Republicans or Democrats. They don't care about us. They don't.
Yeah, so what I would disagree with there is, it's not that it's not a democracy.
It's not.
Hold on. It's that the powerful exert every ounce of power they have to trick people into voting for usually two fake options who are gonna do the same exact thing no matter what. For example, if Kamala Harris had won, she would be advised by Liz Cheney and Bill Kristol, telling her, you gotta bomb Iran, you gotta bomb Iran. Trump wins, he's advised by the Adelsons and Marco Rubio and everyone else, you gotta bomb Iran, you gotta bomb Iran. So, and then all of cable news, all of mainstream media, Washington Post, New York Times, bravo, bravo, bomb Iran, right? So and then the two sides are manipulated. When Joe Biden does it or Donald Trump does it, oh, my guy did it, so it must be great, okay? And so it's super easy to manipulate people into war. And what do you say? You say the same thing they said before Iraq. Oh my God, weapons of mass destruction, we're all gonna get nuked. We're all gonna get nuked. All right, so we're gonna give you a lot more of that here. And this is a propaganda-free show. So we're gonna give you the actual news. And so, by the way, the actual news sometimes hurts your feelings. Like, oh no, I don't want those to be the facts. I want something else to be the facts. Well, we do the news here. So let's do it and show you what's really happening.
All right, well, let's talk about the latest, which is retaliation on US bases. But the way Iran carried out this retaliation is telling. So let's get to the details.
What now? Well, this is just sad on every level. This is the Telegraph. Look, I don't know if this is true or not. Explosions have been heard over Doha, Qatar, after Iran launched a missile attack on the U.S. base there. Western officials told Axios that Iran had fired 6 missiles toward at least one U.S. base in that Gulf country. That base exists to protect Israel, by the way. I know Barry Weiss is constantly attacking Qatar. Qatar has done more to defend Israel. But anyway.
Well, as you just heard from Tucker Carlson there, Iran has begun its retaliation against the United States following President Donald Trump's decision to fight Israel's war by bombing Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend. However, the way in which Iran carried out this retaliation is important because it appears that they're attempting to de-escalate, and hopefully things do de-escalate. Now, how does that make any sense at all? Well, let me give you the details on what they targeted, which US bases they targeted, and how they did it. So, war has entered a new stage, writes Ken Klippenstein over at Substack, with Iran and the United States now shooting at each other directly. Iran has announced that it has fired missiles at the Central Command headquarters at the Al Adid Air Base in Qatar. But this could be a way of giving, parties to this war a potential exit plan or exit strategy. Iran coordinated, let me repeat, Iran coordinated the attacks on the American air base in Qatar with Qatari officials and gave advance notice that attacks were coming to minimize casualties, according to 3 Iranian officials familiar with the plan. Now, that ended up being true because of the air bases that were targeted by Iran. Not a single casualty was reported. This was coordinated to prevent casualties from occurring, but this was a way of the Iranian regime to essentially save face with the people of Iran and at least show that they responded or retaliated in some way following the US attack on their soil over the weekend. Now, there was a response from Trump over this. In just a second, I'll read you what he had to say, but Cenk, what do you think?
Okay, so this is potentially really good news and the only way out of a potential significant war here, okay? Because Iran did this with Israel the first time Israel attacked. And so unfortunately that attempt to de-escalate was not returned, right, in kind. So we're gonna get to what could trigger a larger war. But what Iran is doing is they're saying, hey, we're sending missiles your way. You can easily knock them down. We're gonna tell our domestic audience we were tough against America and we bombed their base in Qatar, knowing that the missiles have no chance of landing, right? But you guys, we're telling you ahead of time, we're not actually trying to hurt you, okay? So now.
Okay,
yeah.
That also kind of needs to be discussed, Cenk. Okay, because this isn't the first time that Iran has responded in a way that was obviously meant to save face with their people while preventing, mass casualties or any casualties at all. It's amazing to me. Look, I am not in any way providing cover for Iran, the mullahs. Obviously, I'm not religious at all, right? And I don't agree with religious fundamentalism at all. I don't agree with, the Shia leadership in Iran at all. However, I don't want to get dragged into a war, much like we were with Iraq. At the same time, if you're comparing the conduct that's been carried out by 2 different parties here, Israel, especially when it comes to their conduct in the West Bank and Gaza, and then Iran and how they're responding to these attacks. I mean, the gaslighting's driving me crazy because we're acting as if, who we're allied with, Israel, oh, well, they're angels. They're totally angels and they follow international laws. They're not doing anything wrong. Iran's the one that gets bombed. Their embassy in Syria gets bombed by the Israelis. How did they respond to that? They waited a few days and then their retaliatory attack was very similar to this. In 72 hours, we're gonna start doing drone strikes. We're gonna start doing missile strikes. Here's where we're gonna do it. So you guys can shoot them down. America, you can shoot them down. Jordan, you can shoot them down. We don't want any casualties. Why are we acting like, one party is like just polite little angels who have done everything right and followed every rule, and Iran is like the dangerous regime that they're gonna do suicide bombings. Like it's just,
yeah.
It's so frustrating. It's frustrating. That's not providing cover for Iran, by the way. The way that they treat their people. The people of Iran absolutely want regime change. They don't want Israel to do regime change on their behalf, though.
Yeah. So look, obviously I'm agreeing. And by the way, to your point, Anna, I've now listened to a bunch of mainstream media reports today, and it's amazing, just straight reporters. Every fourth line is some sort of filler propaganda for Israel. So like they'll tell you a fact, and Noam Chomsky told me about this in one of my interviews. He's like, just listen for the facts. Everything else is just framing in an attempt to manipulate you. So they'll say like, oh, Iran fired some missiles, but they gave earlier warning, but it is so that nobody will get hurt. Basically, they don't say so nobody will get hurt. They'll say, oh, fired some missiles, but we did have some warning. But remember, they're a terrorist state that are very violent, and it's a good thing that Israel took out their capabilities that were threatening the entire region, etc. I'm like, wait, why is this in a straight news report? I don't understand. Why are you just putting in propaganda in the middle of your so-called news? Anyways, so now, guys, the next question is, how do we respond? So Iran is basically saying we want to de-escalate, even though you messed us up, and we don't know how bad those facilities are damaged. Yeah, we'll get to that story in a little bit, but even now, we're saying, okay, very light response. So if our response back to that is, okay, good, let's get the hell out of here. I can't believe that didn't start a giant war. Thank God that they didn't do much of a response. Great, we said we destroy their nuclear facilities, we did, we're out. By the way, if Trump did that, then all of MAGA would be like, told you, it was just a bombing, it was no big deal, etc. But Israel's never satisfied.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, they're not gonna say, oh, it's okay. You helped us do our fake reason for going in.
Exactly.
No, we want regime change.
Exactly.
So I don't care that their response was light. Provoke a bigger response and provoke something larger and larger and larger until we do regime change.
100%.
Okay, now you have look, guys, the beauty of this is that we tell you what's gonna happen before it happens.
Exactly.
We told you that this wasn't about the nukes, they don't even have nukes. We told you that they would try regime change. And guess what? Trump over the weekend instantly changes the goalposts to regime change. So we're all gonna see with our own eyes. Are we gonna get out or are we gonna go further in because we haven't finished the job for Israel yet?
So let's talk a little bit about what happened after the announcement that Iran was gonna do these strikes on US air bases in Qatar. So American air defenses in Qatar were able to intercept 13 Iranian missiles that President Trump said were knocked down in Monday's attack, because obviously Iran gave them prior warning. The intention was to have them struck down. One other missile was allowed to land harmlessly. And again, there have been no casualties. I'm very, very happy to hear that there are no casualties. The fact that we have over tens of thousands, actually 40,000 US troops in the region who are essentially under threat now because of this escalation really does upset and infuriate me, but luckily so far no casualties as a result of Iran's retaliation. Now Trump has responded to this already, writing on Truth Social that Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected and have very effectively countered. There have been 14 missiles, blah, 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 blah. But the important part is that he says at the end, perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, will he be able to encourage Israel to do the same? I doubt it. He'll be reminded about who his funders are. He'll be reminded about his mommy, okay, and the Adelsons giving him hundreds of millions of dollars to essentially allow Israel to do what it wants, carte blanche when it comes to annexing the West Bank. We're just gonna have to wait and see. And the other thing is, guys, obviously the way that the strikes against Iran were carried out over the weekend leaves much to be desired when it comes to trusting Trump. How are you gonna trust Trump, right? I mean, he just flat out lied and made it appear as though he was pursuing a diplomatic negotiation to get a new nuclear deal signed. In the meantime, he had already decided that he was gonna do these strikes. He had no intention of getting them to sign a new deal.
Yeah, I can't believe it, but even Alex Jones said that. He said, well, if you're in the middle of negotiating peace and then you betray that, that's saying to the world leaders that you don't mean anything you say. I mean, that is super ironic coming from Alex Jones, but yeah, we keep saying, oh, come to the peace table. the Iranians over the weekend said, what peace table? You blew up the peace table and you murdered our lead negotiator. So where would we go and with whom? And that is a super fair point. And by the way, as Israel loves, they're saying it all over television now, and every liar, cable news host, pundit, reporter is repeating it. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel wasn't attacked. Iran was attacked, right? And have you heard a single person in American media even ask the question, wait, does Iran have a right to defend itself? Or is this just propaganda? Like it has nothing to do with principles, it has nothing to do with international law. It's just them bad guys. We hate them. They can't do anything. We can defend ourselves by attacking them first. Like words don't matter anymore. Logic doesn't matter, nothing matters. All you have is wall-to-wall propaganda. Okay, now let's talk about some next scenarios. So this is a very light, weak response. I'm thrilled with it for the same reason Anna is. I don't want any of our troops hurt. I hope that this wraps it up. But very likely it will not. Why? Because Israel will be greatly encouraged by this, what they perceive to be weakness. So they're like, oh, you let us know ahead of time that you were gonna bomb us. We think you're weak. Then we'll murder more of your officials until we get regime change. And so it is possible though. So there's one other possibility. What were you gonna say?
I just wanted to comment on that real quick. If they think Iran is so weak, and I'm seeing the same thing, right? They're bragging about it. Okay, then you really have no justification to drag the United States into a full-blown war with Iran, correct?
Exactly, yeah, 100%. So if this is all Iran has, then we have no excuse, none to go further, but Israel will demand that we go further, and we will go further. So that you could write down in stone, okay? So now, what might Iran be up to otherwise? It is also possible, it's a lower percentage chance, but possible, that they're using this as a decoy. Oh, look, a light response. And then they go and actually do a surprise attack on another base or in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Strait of Hormuz we're gonna talk more about later because it affects oil prices. But for now, I do wanna say, we do have destroyers and an aircraft carrier in the region. If they if they close off the Strait of Hormuz, not only will oil prices skyrocket, but then any ships left on the side of the Persian Gulf are sitting ducks and can't leave. So, because they'll be mining the Strait of Hormuz if they do that. And that could be a disaster. We'll come back to that as well.
So this just broke, and I want to mention it because it's relevant to this conversation. But again, I go back to the same issue of, can I trust Trump considering what just happened? Well, he claims, and he just announced that there is a complete ceasefire between the United States and Iran.
Interesting.
Right, so let me just read you verbatim what he posted. Here's the complete post. So congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions, I should say, for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. This sounds like a lot of cope and wishful thinking, I'm gonna be honest with you, but I hope it's true, I really do. Let me read the rest. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. That's the full post. Again, it's hard to trust him given the fact that he lied to our faces about pursuing diplomacy when he was actually planning for the opposite. But I really, really hope this is true. I just don't know.
Yeah, so look, we're live on the air and you heard what I just said a minute ago. So I said if he can manage to get out of this, MAGA will be ecstatic and say, see what he told you, it wasn't a war. Although, by the way, he just said it's a war. A 12-day war, even if that holds, is a war. He's calling it a war, okay? So, all right, now, is it going to hold? I'd be shocked, but I'd love to be shocked. So our job is to deliver facts to you guys. So if it holds, we'll come back and say it held. I didn't like the bombing. It risked a giant war, but hey, they got out of it and they didn't do a regime change, and it wasn't good on any count. But I'm thrilled that it ended. Right?
Can I ask you something?
But my guess is Netanyahu's going to go in there and poke the hornet's nest and poke it and poke it and poke it until he gets what he wants.
Right, because again, just to reiterate, regime change is what Netanyahu has been wanting for literally decades. That's the real purpose for this war. Now, this is the question I have, and I'm gonna just admit that I'm ignorant on this because I don't know if this makes any sense or if this is how ceasefires are usually done. So as Trump put it, the ceasefire would begin with Iran stopping, and then after that, Israel would stop. Wouldn't it make sense for them to both stop bombing each other?
No, it's an asinine comment, of course. Like, I don't want, you're right not to breeze past it. What he's saying is, Iran, you'll stop now. We'll keep bombing you for another 12 to 24 hours. And you'll just have to sit there and take it like a schmuck. But at the end of that 24 hours, we promise that we'll stop bombing you, wink, except we've lied every single time. The Israelis lied when they said they weren't gonna do it. Then the Americans lied when we said we weren't gonna do it. And we already murdered your lead negotiator. But yeah, if you wanna believe us, sure. We're gonna bomb you for another 24 hours. We'll probably bomb the living crap out of you, and you better not do anything. And at the end, we'll be done. Even if that's true, that's already monstrous and terrible, etc. But I would take it, right? But if in 24 hours they murder the Ayatollah and go for regime change, that's not a ceasefire. Okay, so let's see what happens. We're now, the whole world is watching for these 24 hours.
Yeah, and guys, look, I want the people of Iran to have the leadership that they deserve. And I know the majority of Iranians are not happy with the leadership. They don't like the mullahs, they don't like the religious fundamentalism in Iran. However, right now, if you're paying close attention, it's very clear that the United States and Israel are trying to install the Shah, who's exiled for torturing his own people. Like, he was exiled for a reason. The idea that Iranians would like to replace one regime that they don't like with another regime that they wouldn't like is crazy. Allow them to choose their own leaders. They should have a democratic process to choose who they want to lead them.
Yeah, so guys, last two things on this. Number one on that, look, I don't even want to talk about regime change and what the Iranian people want in this context. Because once you start talking about it in this context, it feeds into the Israeli propaganda about how we should do regime change through war. So if the Iranian people have an uprising a couple of years later, 6 months later, whenever they want against that repressive regime, fantastic. But it shouldn't be at the point of a spear, at the point of a gun, and it shouldn't be orchestrated by Israel, because even if it was, then it would lose all credibility.
Preach.
Right, and then nobody in Iran would support it because they'd be like, oh, that's the Israelis trying to foist some loser, pathetic leader on us so they could boss them around after they've gotten their regime change, right? So, okay, and then the last thing is, do not root to be right. Root for the right result, okay? So we think that the much bigger war is more likely to happen, but I hope to God we're wrong, and I'm rooting for me to be wrong, and I'm rooting for it to be over in 24 hours. Yes, we have 40,000 troops in the Middle East in bases. They're obviously a little protected, as we saw in Qatar, but they're nowhere near as protected as Israel is because they don't have Iron Dome. I don't want any of them getting hurt, and I hate war, and I want to get out of it as quickly as possible. Even if it was the wrong thing to do, and we'll never be able to convince people again that it was the wrong thing to do, or some people that it was the wrong thing to do, I would still rather have it be over. Let's root for it to be over in 24 hours, even though we think it's probably less likely.
Yep, I'm right there with you. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we have a lot more to get to, including whether or not the nuclear sites were actually obliterated as Trump claims. Come right back.
First comes strength, then comes peace.
All right, here we go. Let's go to YouTube members first. Patricia Kumar says, anti-war president, my ass. That sounds about right. That's right. So I don't care what MAGA says. When you start a war and you call it a 12-day war, it's a war. And if you start a war, you are not anti-war. These are the most obvious logical things in the world, unless you're blinded by partisanship. Christina Elisa Brown says, the politics haven't been politicking for a long time now, too long. May America be in control by Americans again one day, and God please save the Palestinians. Yeah, save the Palestinians and save the Americans. As we see now, no matter who wins, AIPAC's still in charge. So now we're all Palestinians. You know how it feels to be occupied. So let's hope they don't start starving us soon. All right, Saren Blue says, Anna, I saw you on Piers Morgan. You were awesomely amazing. And they capitalized amazing.
Thank you. Pro-Israel bots are like flooding that comment section, like about how I'm on my menstrual cycle and I'm too emotional. I apologize for being too emotional as I'm talking to an IDF, mouthpiece, as he smirks as I bring up the slaughter of children in Gaza. Like, listen, I'm sorry that I can't stay calm when it comes to debating people like that. It's you don't have to be so difficult. How am I supposed to sit there and have a civil conversation with someone like that?
I know, and then if you guys didn't see, some right-wing Israel supporting douche threw a tampon and Anna on another show. And so this is their thing. The Israelis are like, oh, you're worried about genocide and us murdering 17,000 children and starting yet another war. You're so emotional. And now when I post on social media, okay, Israel got what they want. They dragged us into the war. Now the Israeli supporters have dropped all pretenses and they're like, yeah, we own you, cry harder. Okay, well, thanks for being honest about it, I guess. So, and they're so happy. They're like, ha ha, told you there's nothing you could do. Under both Biden and Trump, we're in charge. Okay, yeah, gloat, go ahead. For now, yeah, you are. We're all occupied. If you say that AIPAC's not controlling our politicians, come on, stop embarrassing yourself. Anthony McClendon writes in on Super Chat, hi guys, I pointed out to someone the imbalance of casualties between Iron Dome protected Israel and its opponents. He responded by saying some of these missiles got through. Not a word about the other side's casualties, because you know, Tony, what they are. They don't think Muslim lives are real human beings. They're like, oh, 263 people died in Iran. Who cares? They're Muslim. And by the way, our cable news people totally agree. They think Muslim lives are totally irrelevant. Israel and America can murder as many Muslims as we like, and they're never gonna like, oh my God, we're concerned about it. Hey, wait, is it terrorism when you kill Iranian civilians? No, they're Muslims. So you can murder them all you want. Be honest, be honest. Thank you, Tony, for writing in. And David Kursafuli writes in, we all know how good Israelis are at following ceasefires, right? I don't trust neither Israel or Trump, so. Back on CYT, Jake and Anna with you guys. So many more updates. Coops, thanks for sending in 5 Young Turks memberships gifted on YouTube. We appreciate all you guys. You guys can hit the join button below to become a Young Turks member. Support bold, independent broadcasting and truth telling and giving you the actual news. And you can also support the show for free. Ring the bell and subscribe as well. All right, Anna, what's next?
Well, I wanted to kind of just show you guys a video that I came across because I thought it was telling. What was also telling about it is that this comment or these comments were made publicly. They're available on YouTube. You could look up the video yourself, but you've never seen this video, Cenk. And I want you to react to it live because I don't know, maybe I was hearing something, imagining things, but unlikely. So let me just set this up for a second. So back in September of 2012, a pro-Israel lobbyist, I mean, he's part of this think tank that tends to push narratives that are favorable to Israel and Israel's foreign policy. His name's Patrick Clawson. was speaking at an event. It was the Policy Forum in Washington, D.C., and he was talking about what could be done to go to war with Iran. I'm not even kidding. So this is 2012 under Obama. Remember, 3 years later in 2015, Obama did one of the best things in his presidency, which was get Iran to sign a nuclear deal. They stopped enriching their uranium. Unfortunately, Trump ripped up that deal in 2018, which led to Iran enriching uranium. But nonetheless, 3 years prior to the Iran nuclear deal, here's what Patrick Clawson had to say. Take a look.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall we had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if in fact the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
What did he mean by that? If somebody else started the war?
So I assume that he means because we know that there's no justification for this war, we need Israel will attack Iran, start the war, and then drag America into it.
Or something needs to happen, some sort of event, some sort of terrible thing needs to happen that impacts Americans.
Yeah.
That would drum up support to go to war with Iran.
Well, okay, that's what's happening today. That was in 2012. It's interestingly right between now and September 11th. And September 11th obviously was a cataclysmic event here in America. And we did go to war with Iraq afterwards, and Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. But to be fair, they had weapons oh no, they also had no weapons of mass destruction. And do you want to know where we got the fake intelligence on the weapons of mass destruction? Our beloved ally Israel gave us that fake intelligence. So, and remember, whenever Ted Cruz or anybody else is asked about it, what does Israel do for us? They give us intelligence, fake intelligence to drive us into war after war after war. And at the time, Israeli leaders said Iraq is our #1 enemy, Israel's #1 enemy. And right now, before this war began, they said Iran is their #1 enemy. And look at that, we're in a war with both of them. And interestingly enough, Israel started one here, the one you guys just saw with your own eyes. And the other one was after a cataclysmic event here in America.
Yeah, it's just, I thought the whole framing of what he was saying there was a little sick, right? Because it's like, oh man, we really want to go to war with Iran. But historically speaking, when the US finally did decide to go to war, in other contexts obviously, they had to wait for something devastating to happen to Americans or to our soldiers, in the case of Pearl Harbor, for instance. I mean, luckily, you had a president at the time, Obama, who was legitimately pursuing diplomacy to get a nuclear deal signed with Iran.
Yeah, one more thing about that. Look, so right now, I don't know that they've even gotten enough support for us to do regime change. That's maybe why Trump announced the so-called ceasefire today. And there's been pushback from some portions of his base and his voters, etc. But if they were able to get Iran to counterattack and hit US troops, boom, you'd have all you would need for regime change. So start the war, agitate, drag America into it, wait for Americans to get killed, and then step aside as America fights your war for you. But I'm sorry, we can't say these things that are super obvious that we're all seeing with our own eyes as it happens right now. And by the way, fun little fact, people like Bill Kristol, who were part of the neocons, who were ready to start this war if Kamala Harris had won, are now beginning to go, oh, Trump not so bad.
100%. I mean, Bill Kristol has always been a snake. And for all the Democrats who were fooled by him and all of the other Bush administration neocons who were like, MSNBC was littered with them and continues to be littered with them. Just dig a little bit deeper, please. Just because you share an enemy, Donald Trump, doesn't mean that these are good people. These are people who dragged us into the forever wars, drained this country of its resources, just complete and utter disastrous people. All right, let's get to the next story because Cenk, honestly, I can see this being used as the rallying cry by the Israeli government to drag the United States into a regime change war. And that's the question of whether or not the US did manage to fully obliterate the nuclear sites in Iran while also doing away with their nuclear stockpile, their enriched uranium. So let's talk about that.
Is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program.
Here is the Isfahan site before the bombing, and this is what it looks like now. So far, the International Atomic Energy Agency says it's seen no radiation leaking from the sites. And one possibility is that that's because the nuclear material might not have been there.
There's a report this morning in the New York Times that Fordo, that deep underground enrichment facility, was severely damaged, but not fully destroyed.
Severely damaged versus obliterated. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. What we know is that their nuclear program back substantially.
While the Trump administration is claiming that the US strikes on Iran's nuclear sites completely obliterated their nuclear program, there is some evidence that Iran may have moved the enriched uranium prior to the attack. Now, if that is proven to be the case, Trump kind of hinting at the fact that they were going to bomb the nuclear sites might have had something to do with it. But nonetheless, some of this intel is coming from Israeli officials who shouldn't be trusted since, they want a regime change war in Iran. They do not want the United States to agree to a ceasefire. Trump today announced on Truth Social that he managed to get a ceasefire agreement between Iran and Israel. We're gonna have to wait and see if that actually comes to fruition. But nonetheless, there is some other evidence that Iran may have moved their enriched uranium. So the 60% enriched fuel had been stored deep inside the Isfahan nuclear facility or nuclear complex. Now, Rafael Mariano Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, said in an interview with CNN on Sunday that Iran has made no secret that they have protected this material. Asked later in the day whether he meant that the fuel stockpile, which is stored in special casks, small enough to fit in the trunks of about 10 cars, had been moved, he replied, "I do." And there's some additional evidence as well that I want to share with you. So for instance, satellite images released by Maxar Technologies at the tunnels leading into the Fordo Mountain, taken in the days before the American strike, show 16 cargo trucks positioned near an entrance. An analyst or analysis by the Open Source Center in London suggested that Iran may have been preparing the site for a strike. Now, Vice President JD Vance weighed in on this when asked about it over the weekend. Let's take a quick look at what he had to say.
The UN's atomic energy watchdog said that Iran had 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium. What do we know what has become of that? Was it destroyed in this attack? Do we know? That's a big stockpile.
We're going to work in the coming weeks. Yeah, John, we're going to work in the coming weeks to ensure that we do something with that fuel. And that's one of the things that we're going to have conversations with the Iranians about. But what we know, John, is they no longer have the capacity to turn that stockpile of highly enriched uranium to weapons grade uranium. And that was really the goal here. Uranium is not that difficult to come by, John, but enriching uranium up to the point of a nuclear weapon, that is what the president put a stop to last night.
So right now you have experts within the Pentagon trying to assess how much damage was actually done to the nuclear sites. But keep in mind, they did use 30,000-pound Buster bunker bombs. And
bunker buster bombs.
What did I say?
Buster bunkers.
That's hilarious. Okay, you know what I mean. So those bombs do serious damage, and we're the only ones who have those bombs. So look, I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. But I'm worried that this is gonna be used as an excuse to keep goading the United States to go to war with Iran.
Yeah, so they want to have it both ways. So on the one hand, they want to say, we obliterated them, we're awesome and strong. On the other hand, they want to say, well, they're not obliterated because we want to keep fighting. So if Israel doesn't use the excuse of, well, they moved some of them, so not good enough, we have to keep going to war, I would be shocked. What does that remind you of? Exactly what they did in Gaza, where they said, we've killed all of Hamas's leaders, so we're awesome and strong, but not everyone in Hamas is dead, so we have to keep going, okay? The Israeli war machine always has to keep going to do self-defense, right? So they always have a new reason to bomb, a new reason to kill, a new reason to take new land, a new reason to topple a nearby country's government, okay? All for self-defense, okay? So no, they're just gonna use it as an, by the way, I don't believe a word coming out of American or Israeli intelligence going forward about whatever uranium they might or might not have left, because I guarantee you it'll be propaganda depending on what they want. In the rare case that this Donald Trump ceasefire holds, and the US intelligence and the Trump administration wants you to believe that it's totally obliterated, whether they are or not, they will insist we got rid of all of it, right? That is much less likely. What is much more likely is Israel, and then hence, of course, by definition, America, will then come back around and go, nope, we didn't get it all. Nope, there's 10 vials over there and 20 vials over there, and we can't get it all until we keep bombing and regime change and more war for self-defense.
Yep. So let's talk about diplomacy, because that was really the only way to ensure that Iran was not enriching uranium or racing toward basically being able to build a nuclear weapon. So again, diplomacy has been the most successful way of ensuring that we don't have proliferation of nuclear weapons. The Iran nuclear deal of 2015 obviously is a good example of that. In fact, more than 15 years ago, the joint US-Israeli attack on Natanz using a sophisticated cyber weapon caused about a fifth of the country's 5,000 or so centrifuges to blow up. And that didn't work, did it? That didn't work. It wasn't until you had the nuclear deal where you have inspectors going into Iran to ensure that they're not enriching uranium to the point where they can build the nuclear weapons. You have checks baked into that system to ensure that people are safe, they're not having weapons that are gonna cause mass destruction. But Trump ripped that up. And if he hadn't ripped that up, we wouldn't find ourselves in the position that this country is in at this current moment.
Yeah, so that's so important. And he could have gone back into the deal and just called it the Trump deal, and he could have changed one or two lines and it wouldn't have mattered. And if he wanted to brag about it, that would infuriate me, but I'd say, hey, a lot better than war. Okay, yeah, get back into the deal, right? So, but why that's so important, guys, is because in American media, they constantly lie to you on purpose and frame it so that it only appears that there are two choices. Either Iran gets a nuclear weapon, and my God, they would obviously immediately use it because they're so irrational, dirty, savage Muslims. So the minute they have a nuke, they press the button right away, just like Pakistan. All right, they didn't do it in Pakistan, but it doesn't matter, dirty Muslims, dirty, dirty, dirty Muslims. They will definitely get a nuke and they will definitely nuke us. Except they don't have a nuke, you're goddamn lying, and there's a third choice. So they say, either we're gonna get nuked or we're gonna go to war. Or you get into a peace treaty that they were already in where they gave away all their uranium.
Right.
And they never tell you that option because they want you to go to war, because it's a propaganda machine. They're not doing news, they're doing marketing for the powerful. All right, now somebody wrote in here and I gotta read it. It's one of our members and it's a great point. Member on TYT.com. Wandering Puerto Rican wrote in, wait, they moved the uranium. Doesn't that sound just like they moved the WMD from where we thought they were at? Jesus Christ, the media is spinning the same crap from the Iraq days. Bingo. You remember when Rumsfeld said, oh no, we know where the weapons of mass destruction are. They're to the north and south and east and west of Tikrit. oops, they were none of those places. And Rumsfeld didn't know. He was lying on behalf of Israel. We had nothing to do with Iraq. They did not attack us. In fact, they were opposed to Al-Qaeda. They were opposed to the people who attacked us, but Israel wanted Iraq toppled. And now they want Iran toppled. Same exact thing, weapons of mass destruction. Oh, we couldn't find them. Oh, they were moved. Now we're doing regime change, and off you go to die and pay for all of our wars. But okay, Trump claims there's a ceasefire, and this is all gonna be that Israel gets to bomb them for 24 more hours, kill as many civilians as they like, do any bombing they like because they're above the law. No international law applies to the great, beloved, moral Israel. They can violate every law, every convention. They can murder as many civilians as they like, but they're the most moral army doing self-defense, right? So, okay, let's see what happens after the 24 hours. But I would be shocked if Netanyahu didn't grab Trump like this and just yank him right back into the war. And Trump, being an idiot and a sucker, will be like, oh, I'm gonna be strong, Netanyahu. You know why he did the bombing? He saw on Fox News that they were bragging about what a brilliant and strong mission Israel had done in bombing Iran. And that moron was like, oh, I could be more brilliant and stronger. I could bomb Iran too. And they had wall-to-wall propaganda on Fox News because they know the moron only watches Fox News.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be so easy to hoodwink that orange buffoon into a further war, but maybe I'm wrong.
I hope you are.
I hope I'm wrong.
I hope what he announced today is actually true and that both parties actually follow through with the alleged ceasefire. I wanna be proven wrong so badly. But honestly, so far, I haven't been proven wrong. Everything I predicted ended up coming true. Adam Sosnick, the guy who threw the tampon at me as we were debating, the reason why he did it is because I predicted accurately that the United States would get dragged into this war, that we would pay for the bombs. By the way, you think Israel paid for those bunker buster bombs? I think we spent 60 billion total for those bombs.
That's a good question. I'll have to look that up.
No one's asking how much those bombs cost.
No. For Israel, Israel first. Okay,
so
that's what all MAGA said, right? Israel first.
We'll wait.
America 28th.
We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the economic impact of a war with Iran, because it is a major oil producing country and we're already seeing some changes in the global oil market. So we'll give you that story and more when we come back.
The nuclear material might not have been there. The nuclear material might not have been there.
All right, guys, let's go to our members on TYT.com. Boomer Dragon Cat says, I admit I had a soft spot for Tim Miller and Sarah Longwell at the Bulwark. Really enjoyed some of their stuff. This came along, reminded me I trust too blindly. I was a little saddened realizing neocon got a neocon. Guys, part of the reason why those guys came over to our side is so that if our side won, they would still be able to influence the Democratic president into going to war with Iran. So, like, you think Bill Kristol and David Frum grew a conscience? No, they're infiltrating the left to make sure that, by the way, getting money to the Democratic candidates, etc., to make sure if they got their bases covered. Either way, we're gonna attack Israel. And they show their true self. The minute we attack Israel, the founders of the Bulwark are like, yes, I thought so, yeah. Tell me more about how Trump bad. I don't know, maybe they do the Trump bad videos because they know it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work at all. So it gets us riled up, our side riled up. They get views and money and stuff. But they also know the dumbest strategy is to call all the other voters fascists and racist and Nazis and stuff like that. They're like, good, let's do the dumb strategy. That way Republicans can win and can start a war or something. I don't know what their true motives are. But I know neocons are gonna neocon, and I know Bill Kristol's super happy today that once again, America did Israel's bidding. Okay, Hakuna Matata writes in, has the Kyle and Crystal Bridge been burned? Can you please address after the debate you guys had? No, I don't view debates as personal. I know that a lot of people take it that way, but there's a difference between saying that the other person is a bad person, a bad faith actor, and a grifter, and all that stuff, and just having a superheated debate. Okay, so I don't think Kyle and Crystal are grifters at all. And please stop using that word at every stupid turn. The minute anybody disagrees with anybody, grifter. Okay, yeah, but how? Why? Okay, it's just a random ad hominem attack, right? So now, does that mean I think everything's like great and we're all like? I think Kyle is unbelievably wrong, and he thinks I'm unbelievably wrong. And I think we're on two different planets. I mean, he said during the debate that, hey, are you gonna call MAGA fascist?
Oh my God.
I mean, really, come on. You think that's the best way to win votes, is to call Trump voters fascist? Is that a political strategy? If it is, it's the worst one in the world. And like treating all Trump voters as the same as the most radical MAGA guy, A, is not anywhere near factual, and B, is super counterproductive. But I can't talk sense into them. They're like, no, yell at them. If we yell at them and we call them dirty words, they will definitely vote for us next time. Or we don't need their votes. We're magically gonna win. So I asked, how the hell are we gonna magically win? You know what their new theory is? Of course, constantly moving goalposts. The new theory is, if we combine the left and the liberals, we'll win. What have we been doing? That's how we lost. I mean, I don't know. What is that? What is that? But hey, I want you to understand, they think I'm just as crazy. Like in their mind, they're like, oh, you're never gonna convince a single Trump voter, whatever. And they genuinely believe that. So no bridges are burned. We just massively disagree.
The nuclear material might not have been there,
All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, and Preston the Dragon, and Antonio Walker, who the Kia guy, I like that. Not only joined, but upgraded to premium. Thank you, brother. We appreciate all you guys. You make this show possible, honest reporting possible. Not everybody wants this show around, okay? And by the way, get attacked on every single side there is, because hey, if you've got a large left-wing network, you know what you should do is try to tear it down so there'll be no defense against the right wing. So, but we withstand all of that because of our members, and you guys are amazing and we love you for it. And we're here to give you the news that you asked for honestly. All right, Anna.
All right, let's talk about the economic impact of a potential war with Iran.
Iran's parliament voting in favor of closing a major shipping route, putting as much as 1/5 of the world's oil supply at risk. It could cost suppliers big time, as Forbes finds that roughly $1 billion worth of oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz daily.
As of this moment, President Donald Trump has announced that Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire. We're gonna have to wait and see if that's actually true and if both parties abide by said ceasefire. But in the meantime, war with Iran has already had an impact on the price of oil. And as you heard in that video from Fox News, the Iranian parliament has already voted in favor of shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, where there's quite a bit of oil being transported because Iran, of course, is an oil producing country. In fact, around 1/5 of the world's oil and related products flow through the Strait of Hormuz each day, according to the US Energy Information Administration. A similar share of liquefied natural gas that has been cooled for shipment also makes the journey. Now, more than 80% of those fuels go to Asia. China is a huge buyer of Iranian fuel. And so closing the Strait of Hormuz could mean that 17 billion barrels of oil could be removed from the global markets. These Asian countries, China being one of them, would look to purchase oil from other oil producing countries in the global market. And that means limited supply, higher demand. That's going to increase oil prices. So the war is already increasing energy costs for consumers in the United States. The price of a gallon of regular gasoline climbed to nearly 3% last week to $3.22, and that's according to the AAA Motor Club. And according to the Wall Street Journal today, prices were below $70 a barrel before Israel struck Iran this month, Brent crude, the international benchmark, spiked above $81 a barrel before falling back to trade around 0.6% higher at about $77.50 recently. WTI, the US equivalent, rose a similar amount to slightly over $74 a barrel. So hopefully the ceasefire is real. Hopefully we avoid getting dragged into a regime change war in Iran. I've learned to not be as optimistic and hopeful as I would like to be, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. Cenk, thoughts?
Yeah, so they think they've got Iran cornered because their most effective attack would be against the Strait of Hormuz and blocking it off and causing the economic damage that Anna talked about. But it would affect a lot of their allies, which would then be angry with Iran. For example, China has been saying, hey, this was a terrible and illegal attack by America on Iran. But if you cut off the oil to China, then they might be aggrieved by that, and you're in a tough spot. But most of all, that's where most of Iran's oil goes through. So that would cost themselves a ton of money. So we are assuming that they won't do that. I didn't think that is a wrong assumption for reasons that I'm gonna explain to you in a second. So far, by the way, the oil price is 3% change is not that big a deal. And so far, not that bad. And the markets are reacting like they think that this is not going to be a big deal and it's not really a big war. The markets went up today, didn't even go down, okay? So I think they're wrong. And so it'll be interesting again here to say, I'm saying that I think the entire market is wrong. So we'll see about that. That's a bold comment, right? But why do I say that? Because I've never seen Israel be satisfied with enough war. So Trump says it'll be all over in 24 hours. My guess is Israel will find a way to say, nope, Iran violated the deal, so we have to go back. I mean, they're not gonna say, oh, we violated the deal, when in reality, it's almost every single time Israel breaks a ceasefire. Whether it's Gaza, whether it's Iran, whether it's anyone else. And by the way, now us too. We say, oh yeah, we're gonna give you 2 weeks. Just kidding, we were giant liars and we just bombed the living crap out of you. So my guess is Israel agitate until they get a bigger war. And then the markets go, oh, I can't believe that happened. And when you say regime changes, Trump did just yesterday, right? You give the Ayatollah no other out. He thinks, all right, then I guess I'm a dead man anyway, so I have no reason for restraint anymore.
Right.
So, and this ceasefire might be a ruse because they got word that Iran is planning to do something in the next 24 hours and it's just to slow them down. Or if Iran does do it, they go, see, they violated the ceasefire. But I would be shocked if it held, because like I said, I've never seen Israel satisfied with peace. They always want more war.
Yes, and just to give you guys the statement from Trump over the weekend that hinted at his consideration of engaging in a regime change war in Iran. He wrote that regime change has quickly become, that's actually from Charlie Kirk. This is Trump's comment. He says, it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Listen, the people of Iran should pursue that regime change on their own. It is not the place of the United States, and certainly not the place of Israel, to go in there and do a regime change war on their behalf so they can install, or so Israel can install some sort of puppet for their government. Come on.
And this reminds me of when they said about Iraq that we're going to be greeted as liberators.
Yeah, exactly.
Were we greeted as liberators? So guys, it's the same exact playbook. They're being lazy, and the reason they're being lazy is they're like, we have American media 100% in our pocket. We have US Congress nearly 100% in our pocket. We had Biden in our pocket. We have Trump in our pocket. So we could just tell people the same exact lies we told them last time. WMD. Oh, we're not done yet. Oh, they moved the WMD. We have to keep going. Now it's regime change. Oh, they were the aggressors. They're the violent terrorists. We're the ones that are defending ourselves. It's all the same lies, 24/7. So, look, I think that if Iran gets to a situation where they think, okay, all hope is lost, and we're not going to be able to prevent this war, they're gonna switch to, okay, now let's have a real war. And I hope that never comes, but if it does, I'd be shocked if they didn't block the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, they'd be kind of nuts not to. That's their one go-to move. And by how much we're howling ahead of time, we're accidentally tipping off that that's the thing that we care most about. Every press report's like, well, they better not take out the Strait of Hormuz because that would hurt them more than anything else. And they better remember that, okay? And I'm like, oh, okay, so you're super panicked about the Strait of Hormuz. So you're with that kind of, obvious concern, it'd be nuts if Iran didn't bomb that, if we're in the middle of a real war, et cetera. And by the way, I don't know, Iran might have terrible capabilities left. They might not have much capabilities at all, or they might have a lot more capabilities than we realize. That's the risk of war. You don't know what's going to happen next. Can their drones take out our ships? I don't know. Nobody's ever attacked a ship with drones before, right? If they're sitting there as, once the strait is blocked and they can't, especially if we have any in the Persian Gulf and they can't leave, you could just endlessly attack that ship. So we'll see. We'll see. I hope none of it happens and the ceasefire holds.
I agree with you. But look, if a war with Iran does happen, if the US gets dragged into it and it's a prolonged regime change war on behalf of Israel, I'm sure we'll all feel super relieved that Republicans are cutting nearly $1 trillion in funding for Medicaid so we can pay for this war. Anyway, we've got to take a break. We'll be right back.
They failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power.
We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
And Phil and host beat CNN and headline news combined. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, you won't believe the meeting that I just had.
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
Magic. It's showtime. And say 45 minutes. I'm hosting today. Now, I know what you're thinking, Jay, your face is already perfect, but you know what? I still need to apply some makeup. I went through this process, right? A few years ago, when I realized that I was gonna have to wear makeup on the show. I had to go through like finding out what my undertones were. Do you guys know what those are? I got my MAC Cosmetics. It says SPF 15 foundation, broad spectrum. But apparently what I have is red undertones, and I think pores are not supposed to be seen. I need all these things to be confirmed for me. These sponge things don't work for me. You gotta use your hands. This idea. That's how the magic really happens. So we're gonna go through a tutorial how to make the magic happen from beautiful to beautifuler. Let's go. I've already been moisturized. That's the first thing. But moisturization already happened. We go raw. All hands. Pick up. Couple streaks. This is the guy way of putting on makeup. Look at that, dots. There's some shiny points that generally happen. First of all, here we go. You dust here. I'm putting way too much, but you dust. Oh, get the excess off. You don't want chunky powder. There's like a T-zone, I think, right? Mine is a double T-zone. Because I went middle and another cross. Make sure your nose isn't all shiny. People get on you for it. Say, that's not a good point you made on there, JR. Your nose is shiny. You guys are picky like that sometimes. I think that's about it, fellas and ladies. See you guys next time. Bitsies.
The nuclear material might not have been there. 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 The nuclear material might not have been there. Might not have been there.
All right, back on TYT, Cheng and Anna with you guys. A lot more news about the war and otherwise.
Yeah, so Konstantin Kisin today referred to me as woke after I talked about the difficulty in engaging in polite conversation and debate with a man who has a smirk on his face as I talk about the slaughter of innocent people in Gaza. And that man was Conricus, I forget his first name, don't care about his first name, but unfortunately I had the displeasure of having to debate him on Piers Morgan's show. Jonathan Conricus, okay. So how is that woke? He quote tweets that. I say polite debates with men who smirk as I bring up the slaughter of innocents is nonsensical. He says woke is so back, baby.
Yeah, no, Anna, of course, being anti-genocide is woke. Like the non-woke position is genocide and Holocaust are awesome, which I'm sure Konstantin Kisin agrees with because he just said it. He just said that being against the genocide is woke. So he's so not woke, he probably loves genocides and Holocaust.
So let me understand something. If I decided to quote tweet him on October 7th when Hamas slaughtered innocents in Israel, and claim that his complaints about that was woke, would that be okay? Of course it wouldn't be okay, right?
No, that's against Israel, so you better watch yourself.
Because innocent people, civilians, should be and must be protected. I look at Israeli civilians as human beings, and when they are targeted the way Hamas targeted them on October 7th, it's freaking disgusting. Anyone justifying it should absolutely be condemned. But for some reason, the humanity of the Palestinian people doesn't matter at all. They just openly mock the idea that anyone would be upset at the slaughter of innocent people. Okay,
because they don't
I see who you are, Konstantin. I see who you are.
Yeah,
wow.
Look, we think Israeli civilians and Palestinian civilians are the same. They're both human beings and their lives should be protected. They don't believe that. They think Palestinian civilians are to be murdered by the IDF under the guise of self-defense. Oh, I had to murder 17,000 children because Hamas made me do it. And I was defending myself against 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And by the way, that's why 100 American doctors came back from Gaza and said, wow, we saw an extraordinary number of headshots on children as young as 3 and 5. Snipers shooting children in the head because of self-defense. But to people like Konstantin, Palestinian lives, Iranian lives, etc., they're nothing. Because they're inferior to the Israelis.
Listen, I know
the Israelis are superior to all of us. So how dare we complain when our superiors are in the room?
I know it's really difficult for the Israeli government and the defenders of the current IDF to hear about what they really are, to hear the truth about who they really are. They're genociders. They revel in the slaughter of innocent people, including children. They're literally shooting and killing Palestinians, including kids, as they're trying to get aid at these humanitarian aid hubs in Gaza. And then they turn around and say, oh, that's just Hamas propaganda, except investigations show that the bullets and weapons are consistent with the weapons that the IDF has. In fact, CNN did one of those investigations.
Of course, the IDF is a bunch of murderers.
Dozens.
The reason they're
kids.
running, I'm sorry, hold on.
Daily.
The reason they're running the food centers and they stopped the UN from running them is so they could murder more Palestinians coming to the food centers. This is exactly what they did in the genocide in Srebrenica. In that case, it wasn't Israel, it was the Serbs. They would set up food, they would starve the population and then set up food centers so when the civilians showed up, they would get to shoot them easier. And you know what the Israeli excuse is for murdering people at the food centers? Well, they got close to the Israeli troops. That's because the Israeli troops killed everyone who was distributing food outside of them. And they're like, come here, little Palestinians. That's it, mow them down and slaughter them. But we're the moral army doing self-defense. No, you're doing a goddamn genocide. And it doesn't make you superior. It definitely doesn't do that. And I know you don't care about civilians if they're not Israeli civilians. That's why you're monsters. Total monsters.
It's amazing how openly they like mock and laugh at the slaughter of innocent people. But okay, Constantine.
When you laugh at a genocide, you are by definition a monster. So don't tell me about any of this crap. And I don't want to hear about anything else anymore about how Israel is the victim. Israel is not within a billion miles of being a victim. They are since 1948, they have attacked all of their neighbors and taken more and more land. That is an absolute certain fact. But they lie to you and they go, oh no, it was the terrorists that they made us take their land. They made us take Gaza. They made us take a huge chunk of the West Bank. They made us go into southern Lebanon. They made us go into western Syria. They made us attack Iran. They didn't make you do any of that. You're an aggressive imperial empire, slaughtering people, committing genocide so you could have more land. And you could easily do that because you manipulated all of our politicians. You bought them through AIPAC. And no, I don't care what you say. You definitely bought them. That's exactly what AIPAC did. And anyone who's a fool enough to tell you, no, AIPAC gave out hundreds of millions of dollars, but it didn't affect our politicians. You would have to be a moron of the highest order to say that. You'd have to be the dumbest person in the whole planet to say our crook politicians took hundreds of millions of dollars from AIPAC, but it didn't affect them? Come on, who could be that stupid? Oh, I know, every single mainstream media reporter in America. Every single one of them lies to you on purpose and says, no, AIPAC doesn't have any influence. AIPAC, how do you say it, anti-Semite? No, you guys are anti-Palestinian, anti-Muslim racist and bigots. You don't care about Muslim lives. You don't care about Muslim lives at all. So when Palestinians are slaughtered, what is it gonna take, 18,000 kids, 180,000 kids? You don't care about them at all. Whenever Israel slaughters, you go, terrorists, they had it coming. And you do their propaganda for 2 years later, self-defense, they declared in their cabinet that they're taking all of Gaza. It was always about the land. Does anybody on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News say that? No, they never say it. They lie to you on purpose to help Israel steal more land in the Middle East, and they claim it's self-defense. Self-defense, my ass, it's a goddamn genocide. And yes, Muslim lives matter. We're also human beings. The only human beings on this planet aren't Israelis. They're not some special benighted superhumans. Oh my God, if they die, we all have to say, oh, we bow down to you. But if Muslims die, right? That's what American media does. That's what American politicians do. I'm so sick of our lives not mattering. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of everyone has to grovel to Israel. But the minute you ask someone, can you be a decent human being and care about the Palestinians? They go, anti-Semite, no, F you. You're the one who hates Muslims. And American media, you are guilty. You're the ones who got the whole country, my whole life, to hate me, to hate my Muslim family, to hate all Muslims across the world. You're the sick sons of bitches that called us terrorists when it was Israel attacking, when it was Israel taking land, when it was Israel slaughtering and slaughtering. How many times? Every war, Israel kills 100 times the civilians. This time they kill 1,000 times the civilians. Doesn't count, doesn't count. What does the American media say in their infinite racism? They say it's always the Muslims' fault. It's always the Palestinians' fault. They say stupid crap like, oh no, the Palestinians can't govern themselves. They're violent, terrorists, savages. They can never govern themselves. They're inferior to the Israelis. You don't say that, but you imply that every time. What, the Palestinians are the only people on earth who can't govern themselves? No, you're deeply racist if you say that. You understand? No, every cable news anchor, every reporter at the New York Times, every reporter at the Washington Post, you're all deeply racist against Muslims, and you have gotten this country to hate us. It's totally your fault. And you've gotten the country to believe that 1.6 billion Muslims are America's enemies, that we're the violent savages. You're sick, you're disgusting. I can't stand it anymore. Can you for once in your life treat a Muslim life the same as an Israeli life? And the answer for mainstream media in America is hell no. They're never gonna do it, never. They hate Muslims and they drive hatred towards Muslims because Israel needs more land. They need more of Gaza. Are you gonna report accurately that they voted to take Gaza? It was never about self-defense. They took Gaza. They voted on that. Have you said it? No, I mentioned it on page A17, but I don't want anybody to find out Israel's the aggressor. Israel's a moral army. Israel's doing self-defense. It's those dirty Muslims that are attacking. I'm sick of it. F all of you in American media. F all of you for driving that hatred against 1.5 billion people, all to serve your beloved Israel. I know I'm the one who's being terrible anti-Semite. How could you say something against Israel? Israel is the Jewish state, the greatest state of all, right? I don't care that they're Jewish. I wish they weren't. I wish they had a safe haven for Jews that didn't constantly attack their neighbors.
It's called
that
America.
Didn't occupy their neighbors. I want a safe haven, but they don't want a safe haven. They want more land. It's called Greater Israel. It's a map that hangs in their cabinet. It's not like they're hiding it. Why don't you report it? Because no, anti-Semitic. That's an excuse they use to drive hatred towards Muslims so that Israel can accomplish their objectives. And I'm just, as you can tell, had all I could take.
Yeah,
you know
same.
what happened, Anna, sorry.
Same.
So one of our members, History Speaks, wrote in about this story that just came out in the last hour in the Washington Post. I couldn't believe it, so I looked it up, it's true. Sorry guys, obviously I'm enraged here. I got to a point where I can't take it anymore. Does my life matter? Does my life matter? Does my family's life matter? Okay, here's what Israel did according to the Washington Post in Iran. There's an audio recording that the Washington Post has gotten. It says in the recording that Israeli intelligence calls Iranian generals and they say, I can advise you now, you have 12 hours to escape with your wife and child. Otherwise, you're on the list right now, on our list right now. And an Israeli intelligence operative told a senior Iranian general close to the country's rulers, according to the audio recording. The operative then suggested that Israel could train weapons on the general and his family at any moment. Quote, we're closer to you than your own neck vein. Put this in your head. May God protect you, he said. So look, you wanna do psyops, you wanna threaten their generals, I get it. You call up and say, we're gonna murder your children. You know what? Who does that? Terrorists do that. Absolute stone cold terrorists do that. And have they murdered their children? Yes. I mean, in Gaza, there's 17,000 dead kids. And in Iran, do you know that they murdered their scientists in front of a kindergarten earlier? They have no qualms. They murder civilians, they murder scientists, they murder kids. They murdered over 200 innocent civilians in their first bombing raid. But with American media, it never matters because those are just Muslim lives. And you could threaten to murder Muslim children, and as long as it's beloved moral army Israel, they'll say, oh, it's great, it's wonderful, they're our special ally. So no, that is not a special ally. It is a despicable government, despicable. I wondered what I would have done if I was around during the Holocaust. I do not wonder anymore. I would have fought it with everything I had. And as the media probably would have said, well, look, the Germans had to defend themselves. They had to defend themselves. It's the fault of the other people. They were threatening Germany's expansion. And Germany had to expand for self-defense. And that is what they said, that it was for self-defense. And so I'm sick of your expansion, I'm sick of your wars, and I'm sick of us having to pay for all of your atrocities. All right, sorry, Anna.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I don't know, maybe we'll get into.
No, I want to do more media. I want to show you what they're the worst people on earth. They're the worst people on earth. We're going to show you MSNBC and CNN and Fox News doing the same exact propaganda. What happened? I thought you guys were opposed to one another. No way, they're not opposed to one another at all. It's all a giant effort to manipulate you and to do whatever the donors want. All right, we'll be back.
First comes strength, then comes peace.
All right, I'll read some of these super chats, guys. Constantine Kavira said, that jerk doesn't speak for all Constantines. Keep spreading the moral truth, Anna. Land of the Free, home of my rant, says, hi Anna, sorry you face that self-hating ogre and 3 warmongers on Piers Morgan's show.
Yeah.
Few in DC grasp October 7th's root. Israel controlled Gaza's food, water, and power, fueling Hamas's anger, yet Israel acts like the bully. Iran stands up and is labeled a terrorist. Listen, guys, nothing excuses October 7th, but nothing excuses the 58-year brutal, sick occupation of the Palestinians, backed up by the racist ideology of, Palestinians are the only people on earth who can't govern themselves. Well, if anyone tells you that, you should call them a racist right to their face, because that's who they are. Sorry, Anna, were you gonna say something?
No, I mean, it's just in every context that you see me engaged in debate on this specific issue, it's interesting how much the panel is stacked with neocons and Israel defenders.
Of course.
Right? Every single, like John Bolton was on the show today, on Piers Morgan's show today. Like, okay.
Okay, the world is like 98% against Israel. But if you go on Piers Morgan or cable news, it's 98% pro-Israel. Why? Because it's an illusion. It's meant to trick you into thinking that people agree with Israel, when in reality, the whole world despises Israel, not because they're Jewish, but because of what they're doing. And then they hide behind it. Oh no, it must be because they're anti-Semitic. No, it isn't.
I have to vent about this. Please, for anyone who does that, stop defaming Jewish people, okay? Don't conflate Jewish people with the government of Israel, because I find it particularly disgusting. There are plenty of Jewish people, especially here in America, who have been protesting and speaking out against what the current Israeli government is up to, what they've been doing. They've been speaking out against the genocide. To conflate them with what Israel currently is, I think is disgusting. Yeah. Absolutely disgusting.
Grizz, my homie from the street, says if Trump promises a ceasefire, you Iranians should head to your bunkers. He's probably already launched the nukes. No, he hasn't launched the nukes, but yes, he's a giant liar. Blake Gibbs says, Cenk, you're a legend. Thank you always for working for us, Anna's goals, and the future of media. F all the spineless politicians and neocons. The true working class progressives will have our time. I hear you and appreciate you, Blake. The guy I mentioned earlier, History Speaks, said the Washington Post is reporting a recorded phone call where Israeli agents threatened to kill the children of the Iranian general if he didn't flee the country. Imagine if Iran threatened America or Israel's generals' kids like that. Of course, they'd be considered dirty, savage, terrorist Muslims, right? But when Israel does it, no, they're terrorists. The government of Israel is indisputably terrorist. Levi says, Israel and the US is like tail wagging the dog, all because Christians think Jesus will be coming back down to Israel. I voted for Trump.
comes strength and comes peace.
The nuclear material might not have been there,
All right, back on to it. To Cenk, Adam, Darren Graves. Darren, thank you for joining. Cat Low, thank you for giving 10 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. I was in the middle of reading a super chat and it got cut off. I'm just gonna read it real quick for you guys. Levi wrote in, Israel and the US is like the tail wagging the dog. All because Christian thinks that Jesus will be coming back down to Israel. I voted for Trump for America first, not this. Anna is 100% right. Levi, you don't exist. All the other left-wing shows tell me that there are no Trump voters who've turned on Trump and that you're all lying, okay? So, but we're not like the other shows. Welcome, brother, welcome. If you realize that Trump's a fraud and he lied to you about the war and he lied to you about being independent and being America first, and in reality he's now just doing the exact same thing the Uniparty did and the establishment did, and he's actually backing Israel first, and you want to come here because you believe in Americans and you believe in populism, well, you found the right place. And I know you guys exist, and I appreciate you for caring about principles and not being tribalists. So thank you for having an open mind, Levi, and you're definitely welcome home here. All right, Anna.
Yeah, it's shocking to me how basic human rights, basic concern about humanity is like frowned upon right now. It really is. Anyway, let's get to the media cheerleaders.
We just kicked their ass. We just took out what they've spent 40 years trying to build.
I think progressives underestimate how dangerous Iran is. We cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran.
I find it hard to believe that Bush 41, Bush 43, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, go down the list. Any presidents wouldn't have felt compelled to take that strike.
Doesn't matter what you were listening to or what you were watching this weekend. You just watched 3 separate clips from CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. And in every single one of them, they were cheerleading for the military strikes that the United States carried out against Iran's nuclear sites. This again happened over the weekend. Could drag us into a prolonged war. Trump over the weekend also hinted that he might be open to regime change, although today he announced that Iran and Israel agreed to a ceasefire. Neither party, as I speak right now, has commented on that. So I do question if there really is a ceasefire. But go ahead.
Okay, so look, I love that clip and I wanted to show it to you guys. Why? We've told you 100 times on this show, they're playing good cop, bad cop on us. Both establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans. Oh, the Republicans are the bad guys. Oh, but the Democrats come and go. There was nothing we could do, right? So same exact thing for MSNBC, Fox News. Good cop, bad cop. And we all hate Trump. Boo Trump on MSNBC. Oh, he did a war. Oh, we love that war. We got more videos coming. Oh, war is great. Oh, the donors are super happy. Military industrial complex, the oil companies, AIPAC, they're all thrilled. Everybody get out there. Now you all love Trump, right? So whenever it's an economic issue that affects the donor class, all 3 cable news stations rally. And it doesn't matter which side it's on. No, and they got their pom-poms and they're all cheerleading for it. Of all those guys we just showed you, the one I'm most disappointed in is Van Jones. So Van Jones tried to make an argument for how progressives should be like the neocons and be in favor of attacking Iran. You must be out of your goddamn mind. No progressive is interested in starting a war for Israel, no matter how much you say that on TV. I don't know who the hell is paying you to say that, but that's like if you actually believe that, then I feel even worse for you. What a ludicrous thing to think, but we'll give you the clips.
So let's go through each of those 3 channels one by one. So let's start with Fox News, for instance. By the way, Fox News has been wall to wall war coverage, endless. I mean, it's so reminiscent of the lead up to the war in Iraq. But nonetheless, Fox is especially important because as we've covered, President Donald Trump watches Fox News incessantly. It's still his favorite programming to watch. And they have been kind of egging Trump on in carrying out the strikes that he did carry out over the weekend. So let's take a look at some of their coverage.
We just kicked their ass. We just took out what they've spent 40 years trying to build, and hundreds of billions of dollars with the help of the North Koreans, the Chinese, and the Russians, and anybody else they can get.
Donald Trump understood with moral clarity, as Prime Minister Netanyahu did, that there is good and evil, and that it is better if you apply common sense to just come to the simple conclusion that the #1 state sponsor of terror cannot have nuclear weapons. They have no value for human life.
There's a very small but vocal faction within the GOP which seems to want to live comfortably numb between a couple of oceans and friendly neighbors and let the rest of the world fend for itself. I mean, morally or politically, what's the use of being strong and powerful if you don't or won't protect your friends and allies in democracy?
Every dictator in the world is on notice now.
The world is a safer place tonight, is my conclusion. What's yours?
I couldn't agree more, Sean. God bless President Trump, God bless the U.S. military, and God bless the Israelis for paving the way so this mission could be as successful as it was. And if the Nobel Peace Prize were worth anything anymore, I would say the president certainly deserves one.
So all of the coverage on Fox News sounds like that. You're not going to hear a differing opinion at all. In fact, I got a little taste of what it's like when you happen to be one of the few people who's willing to give a different opinion in the media. There will be a total campaign to ban you from the network. Getting a little taste of that right now, Cenk, but go ahead.
Okay, so real quick on that. So you're not surprised that Fox is doing propaganda for more war, and of course, war on behalf of Israel, not America. They did not have a nuke. They had no reason to attack us. They're not our enemy. They're Israel's enemy, and all this talk of them having a nuke is just nothing but giant lies. Okay, so that you know, but they have an audience of two sets of people there. One is they're trying to manipulate all the 70-year-olds watching Fox News. Oh yeah, we said anti-war, but I think anti meant pro. Yeah, we meant we're pro-war. Okay, super easy to influence them and bring those sheep over to the pro-war category. They've been there before, and Fox News got them there before. Easy to get them now. But then the top 70-year-old that they're targeting is Donald Trump, who's in his 70s. And they're like, oh, you kicked ass, Donald Trump. The way to do, you be super strong. If you're strong, you start wars for Israel. Yeah, attaboy, and he's listening like an idiot. And we know, New York Times reported that he got very influenced when Israel did a bombing campaign of Iran, but hey, same thing. In their minds, this is just a replay of the Iraq war, same propaganda. So when Israel did the bombing of Iran, Fox News on purpose went on there and said, oh, it was amazing. Oh, it was so strong, it was so brilliant. And Trump got all goosed up by that. And he's like, yeah, I want to be strong and brilliant. I could bomb them too. So they're trying to manipulate him. So did you notice the lady at the end though? He should get a Nobel Peace Prize for starting a war. There's no end to the propaganda. There are no bounds.
Now, Fox News, of course, is the right-wing cable news channel. MSNBC is thought of as the cable news channel that provides cover for the Democratic Party. And oftentimes, actually all of the time, they're very critical of Donald Trump. Not so in their recent coverage. You'll notice a change in their tone. Let's take a look.
The level of secrecy of this mission, the fact that you had planes that flew from the continental United States, from Missouri, and flew for, I think it's 18 hours with multiple refueling in the air. All of that, to me, is just on from what they're telling us, is rather impressive.
There's one thing I'll agree with Secretary Hegseth on and others here. This was a tremendous success for what it was. It probably took weeks and weeks and weeks of planning.
The president had no good options. What would Monday look like if he hadn't have moved? If Iran wasn't already at 60% and an ability to create nuclear weapons in a short matter of time, right? I find it hard to believe that Bush 41, Bush 43, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, go down the list. Any presidents wouldn't have felt compelled to take that strike.
I mean, I'm not surprised. None of this is surprising to me.
Yeah.
Like, let's just, I'm so black-pilled on the media.
Yeah, here we go.
The love for war, it's endless.
So Scarborough just said there, oh, this is the same thing George W. Bush and Hillary Clinton would have done. Well, that might be true.
That is true, yes.
So MAGA, you must be so proud. Trump is just like Hillary Clinton and George W. Bush, getting us into a giant war in the Middle East. And now Joe Scarborough is praising him, and all of MSNBC is praising him. The Uniparty's back. You must be so proud. War is back. You must be so proud of Donald Trump. Okay, and then did you see the same guys who before were like, oh, Hegseth shouldn't be the defense secretary? Now they're like, well, we have to give a lot of credit to Secretary Hegseth. I mean, starting a war on behalf of Israel is a genius move to do. Everybody agrees. MSNBC agrees. Fox News agrees. And then you see, it was so impressive. What a tremendous success. They're all doing this so that if Donald Trump is watching, he's like, oh, it was a tremendous success. I should bomb again for Israel, right? So guys, is it Trump's success that our military has technology that is way past Iran's, and that we have B-2 stealth bombers? They make it seem like Trump did it. And we're principled and honest here. I said the same exact thing when Obama was president. And they all made it seem like Obama went on the mission to kill bin Laden. I was like, they're like, and he gave the go-ahead order. I'm like, yeah, that's the easy part. Going to kill bin Laden is the hard part. They make it always seem like this grand heroic thing to the presidents when they go, okay, go ahead, right? No, like this, and our air superiority to Iran's and our weapon superiority to Iran is so gigantic. It's like we're squashing them with a giant boulder and they're a tiny little thing. And then all these propagandists go all over cable news going, brilliant, no one could have done it. It was so hard. It was so hard. But the brilliant genius Donald Trump, who we just told you like yesterday was evil and a fascist and a Nazi, is now the greatest person in the world because he started a war that Israel wants.
So we'll end with CNN. Same crap, different network. Take a look.
Well, I'm fascinated and candidly, I'm impressed. I think the use of deception and trickery in this case, first of all, was successful, but second of all, saved the potential loss of American lives.
I think progressives underestimate how dangerous Iran is. Iran is not a normal country. Normal countries don't blind women because they showed some hair. They don't empower little gangs and proxies to surround a country and fire rockets and rape people. The question, though, is the who and the how. Is Israel going to take out this nuclear capacity by dropping people there who blow it up? Or is America going to take it out by dropping a bomb that blows it up? But the what and the why are clear, and I think progressives should get on board with that. We cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran.
I'll just comment on the first individual you heard comment on CNN. So he was kind of celebrating the Trump administration's trickery and deception. What he's referring to is the fact that publicly Trump claimed that he wanted Iran to have a seat at the table with him and sign a nuclear deal. He claimed he wanted to engage in diplomatic means. He said that he was going to make a decision within 2 weeks, and then a day later, he carried out the strikes, which could very likely drag the United States into a prolonged war. We have to wait and see what's gonna happen, but the fallout and the blowback from that is a huge problem. The other thing that's a huge problem is once you have an American president pretend like he's gonna engage in diplomacy and then immediately do these strikes, well, that just destroys any chance at diplomacy in the future. Why would any other government, any other regime trust the United States government when they claim that they want to engage in diplomatic negotiations?
Yeah, so that first general, CNN didn't disclose it. There was a general on MSNBC. They didn't disclose where they're working, but I would be shocked if they weren't working for defense contractors. But they never reveal that. And every general that comes out is always pro-war, about 98% of the time. So they're like, oh, this is impressive. way to start a war that I will personally profit from. In that case, I don't know for sure. We've done it before. Every time we look, it's a general that actually is now retired and working for a defense contractor. So we'll look into it. But for now, so we'll just assume that he just loves war, and we'll find out later if he had a personal interest. Okay, now you go to Van Jones. We cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran. Well, good news, Van, we don't. We didn't. And you make it seem like the only two choices were we were gonna get nuked by a nuclear-armed Iran, and they were not nuclear-armed, and you know that, so I don't know why you're saying things that are patently false on television, okay? No, the two options weren't they're gonna have a nuke, they're about to kill us, or we have to invade them on behalf of Israel. No, the other option was get back into a peace treaty, the perfectly good one that Obama had, the one that Iran would go back into in any second, where they would ship their uranium out to France and their plutonium out to Russia, and they would get it back for energy purposes. We all know this, you know that, but you're choosing to leave that option out so that America can cheerlead for war. And then you have the temerity to ask progressives to cheerlead for a neocon war. And then the other absurdities. He says, Iran is not a normal country. Oh, tell me about how dangerous the Muslims are, Van. They're super dangerous, aren't they? They don't respect women. That's why they've killed over 20,000 women. Oh no, that's Israel and Gaza. But they killed children, that's 17,000 children dead in Gaza by Israel. But they fire rockets into civilian areas. Israel in Gaza and in Iran and in Lebanon, let alone everywhere else. Everything he said could be applied to Israel. But if you applied it to Israel, no. How dare you? We can smear Muslims all day long. We can bomb them and kill them. And progressives, you should celebrate that. But if you ever say the truth about Israel, very wrong. That is not pre-approved propaganda. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, while pretending to disagree, will tell you, no, you cannot say true things about Israel. Go ahead, Anna.
I mean, look, I agree with Van Jones, Jake. I mean, Iran is so terroristic that they like to call and give the United States warning ahead of time and let them know exactly where they're gonna do military strikes so the US can intercept those missiles and there won't be any civilian casualties.
I'm just gonna say real quick, we just covered it earlier in the show. Israel calls Iranian generals, Washington Post has covered it, audio recording of it, and they threaten to murder their children if they don't betray their own home country.
I think Hamas actually did the phone call.
Oh, sure, of course. It was in self-defense. They threatened to murder their Iranian children in self-defense, of course, because Israel can never do anything wrong. Now, if Iran had called American generals and threatened to murder their children, what would we call them, Van? We'd call them terrorists, right? But when Israel does it, no. Israel has a program called Where's Daddy, where they use AI to pick targets. So they have no idea if it's even true that the person is in any way connected to Hamas. It's phone, that phone is connected to that phone, connected to that website. Next, somebody's dead. But that's not even the bad part. The awful part. That's the bad part. The awful part is they wait till they go home, so they murder the entire family with that guy. That's called Where's Daddy? Because as soon as Daddy comes home, Israel murders their children. But I know Iran is not a normal country. Iran, because they're Muslim, is so uniquely evil. But don't ever look at all of the things Israel has done, because CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News just coincidentally happen to agree with Israel every single time. Get out of here, man. I vomit your propaganda. I can't stand it.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, our final segment. I don't know what we're gonna talk about yet. There's a lot more to get to, so stick around. We'll be right back.
The nuclear material might not have been there. Might not have been there.
back on Super Chat. Steph Will says, I was at the Fight Oligarchy rally in Tulsa wearing my No More Effing War hat, and I started crying after we chanted No More War, and the sweet lady next to me from Kansas put her arm around me and rubbed my back. Well, I love that you guys went out there and had solidarity, and that's a beautiful, touching moment. Of course, the entire country, all 330 million people can chant No More War, and our corrupt politicians and media will drag us into war anyway. So, Block says, I'm not a fan of what we did, but on the upside, we'll never have to listen to Netanyahu talk about nuclear weapons ever again.
Oh, he will.
He will. Right? And the minute they're like, oh, now the Syrian regime which we installed has turned slightly hostile. That's it, Syria has weapons of mass destruction and needs regime change, and plus we need Western Syria for self-defense. Okay, Titan says, Cenk, I hear you, but even if it's done a deception or trickery, we effectively do not have a democracy. I would argue it's been that way for a while.
I agree.
No, look, guys, I generally agree. I'm the one who's been saying it for 20 freaking years on this show. It's an oligarchy. It's the donors rule everything, and they give you false choices. Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. I just had a debate about this on Jubilee. Okay, what were they? They were arguing over Romney Care or Obamacare. It's the same freaking thing. It's all a ruse. At the end of the day, you always get the same corporate donors. I know. I'm just saying there is a way to break through. It is extraordinarily difficult, but that's what we all have to do together, break through. Ben Newmark writes in, getting sick of Israel's warmongering, have a relative in the IDF, and I'm very worried she will get killed for Netanyahu's ego. Ben, thank you for being a wonderful human being. And yeah, you should be worried about your relative in the IDF. They are in danger, and they're in danger because of Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, and Smotrich and their imperial ambitions and their political ambitions. So what we all want is a safe haven for Jews in Israel and an independent state for Palestine, so we could just all move on with our lives without constantly, every year, worrying about which war do we have to start for Israel next.
Mike Johnson says he'll have US representatives arrested if they interrupt Netanyahu next week, arresting Americans to shield a foreign leader.
Jesus. Yeah, of course. If you even say anything to Netanyahu, you'll be arrested. You don't have any freedom of speech in America. Okay. Oh, but don't say Israel controls us. That's very wrong. Okay. King Gay Man is here. 123, hilarious handle there on YouTube. Writes in, God bless you, Cenk. I appreciate your solidarity. I'm a Palestinian, but I was born and raised outside. I'm a big follower of your channel. It's really blood boiling, and hope this stops through some miracle. Thank you, brother. Thank you. It's the very, very least I could do. Two last names says, Cenk, you brought me to tears. We were raised in a very evangelical family and a hair away from the monsters who believe some lives are worth less. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Catch a Butterfly on Twitch says Biden could have gotten back into the deal but didn't choose to. That's a great point, by the way. Joe Biden could have gone back into the Obama-Biden deal anytime, but he didn't. Why? Because Israel ordered him not to get back in that deal. We'll be back. All right, I back on TYT Cenk and Anna. I got to read these two for just to represent people, and then I'll read more in the bonus episode for the members. Cool science teacher said, Cenk, your impassioned rant brought this Muslim woman to tears, in part because things have not improved since I first came to your content 15 years ago due to your defense of Muslims then, and in part because of the current situation. And Django Dragon says, I'm crying with you, Cenk, from one Muslim to another, never give up. So look, guys, we're here in America, and we're the ones paying for all this genocide and all these war crimes and all this war. So the very least I could do is fight for all of you guys. And then anyway. All right, thank you guys. All right, Anna.
All right, Trump is continuing his war against Congressman Thomas Massie, who is not to be pushed around to fund wars that he doesn't want to fund. So without further ado, let's get to the details.
I think I represent part of the coalition that elected President Trump. We were tired of endless wars in the Middle East and tired of wars in Eastern Europe. And we were promised that we would put our veterans, our immigration policies, and our infrastructure first. What he promised us was we would put America first. I think this was a bad move politically, but it's also just a bad move legally and constitutionally and policy-wise.
Republican Congressman Thomas Massie is putting Donald Trump on full blast, and now the president is promising to take him down in the next election. Now, last week, Massie joined with Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna in introducing a war powers resolution that essentially would stop Trump from taking unilateral military action in Iran. Now, Massie says that there are now 57 co-sponsors on that resolution. And over the weekend, he condemned Trump's decision to bomb Iran's nuclear sites and challenged the idea that Iran posed an imminent threat specifically to the United States. Now, he also called out AIPAC's influence on his colleagues in Congress, and it wasn't the first time he's done this. Take a look.
You still got calmer heads that could prevail.
They were not persuasive in this case, clearly.
Well, somebody was persuasive. AIPAC is very persuasive. For instance, the Israeli lobby in Congress. If you look at my colleagues' feeds now, they all look the same. They're all tweeting the same message that we've got to support Israel and we've got to do this.
When you say the pro-Israel lobby, AIPAC, do you see a difference between Israel's interests and American interests?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, Iran, the reality is they don't have a missile that can reach the United States. They're not near to getting a missile that can reach the United States. I think this, what has happened, what has transpired this week has been planned for months. This administration and maybe even the administration prior to that said, you go in and soften them up, take out their air defense capabilities, and then we'll send in the big bombers.
So Massie does not like using up and expending US resources on wars. He understandably is concerned that this is going to drag the United States into yet another forever regime change war. At the moment, there are allegations by Trump that Iran and Israel have agreed to a ceasefire. By the way, the slaughter in Gaza continues. The annexation of Palestinian land in the West Bank continues. Everyone's forgotten about that. And for Palestinians who are not in that situation, who have been able to flee Gaza, might be living in other parts of the world, just want to apologize for what our government is funding, the absolute slaughter of your people who apparently the international community doesn't care about at all. And it breaks my heart, but go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, so Tom Massie is Dr. No, right? So he votes no on a lot of bills and he does it because he thinks we spend too much money. On a huge percentage of those, I disagree with Tom Massie, but I've never seen him be dishonest. And that is super rare for an American politician. So I've got 3 on the board as never being dishonest: Massie, Bernie, and Ro Khanna. Okay, and I include Ro in that because when we disagree, he comes out and say we disagree and we fight over it. And then when we agree, right? And so I've seen him prove himself to be honest. I've seen Massie prove himself to be honest. Now you want to know who's co-sponsoring the War Powers Resolution? Tom Massie and Ro Khanna. And who's doing likewise in the Senate? Bernie Sanders. And by the way, surprisingly, Tim Kaine. So credit to Tim Kaine on that. Although people are reporting, The Intercept is reporting, one of our members just wrote in about it, that the Democrats are secretly happy about the strikes, a lot of the Democratic leadership.
It's not a secret. I think they're being pretty clear about how happy.
No, now since it already happened, they don't need to push Trump into it. Schumer is now afterwards. Before, when Tim Kaine, again, I can't believe Tim Kaine's a good guy here, but Tim Kaine was like, let's go, let's vote on this thing that blocks him from doing it. Schumer was like, we'll act at a later time if we think it's necessary. And then Ro Khanna got in a lot of trouble in DC because he's like, what do you mean if necessary and later? It's necessary right now, right? But after Trump already does the bombing, then Schumer comes out and goes, oh yeah, we are opposed to that. Right?
Yeah.
So, but that's why The Intercept reporting that they're secretly very happy about it.
Yep.
Makes sense.
So let's get to Trump and his fury over what Thomas Massie has been saying. He's not happy at all. In response to Massie's very public campaign criticizing the president's actions, Trump wrote an essay-long rant on Truth Social saying that Thomas Massie of Kentucky is not MAGA. Hold on, let's pause for a second. Make America great again, or America first, right? How exactly does it make sense to, without any debate, spend tens of billions of dollars on bombing a country that doesn't have nuclear weapons? Okay, but I'll continue. Even though he likes to say he is, actually MAGA doesn't want him, doesn't know him, and doesn't respect him. He is a negative force who almost always votes no, no matter how good something may be. He's a simple-minded grandstander, a lot of projection happening here, yeah. Who thinks it's good politics for Iran to have the highest level nuclear weapon, while at the same time yelling death to America at every chance they get. You know what? I too think that we should bomb countries over chance. This lightweight, he continues, congressman is against what was so brilliantly achieved last night in Iran. Massie is weak, ineffective, and votes no on virtually everything put before him. Rand Paul Jr., so a little shot fired right there when it comes to Rand Paul. No matter how good something may be, he is disrespectful to our great military and all they stand for. Let's just acknowledge the fact that being disrespectful to the military is essentially using them as pawns to fight a war on behalf of a foreign government. And that's what our military has been used for in various wars, by the way. Whether we're talking about Iraq, Libya, I mean, the list goes on and on. Syria, in the case of Syria, obviously we helped to fund the rebels, arm the rebels. We got involved in that war, not to the same extent that we did with Libya or Iraq, but how does it make sense to support our troops by putting them in danger on behalf of a foreign government?
Yeah, and as Massie explained, not only do they not have nukes, it would take them years to develop a bomb that could deliver the nuclear material to America. So we had other ways of stopping that, including a peace treaty. But no one on television is talking about a peace treaty because they all wanted the war. So look, I was a little surprised in this story. So he's super harsh against Massie. We got more harsh things that he said, and we have Massie's response in a second. But he said MAGA doesn't respect him. He's a lightweight, and he's disrespectful to our military. First of all, again, for Anna's point, disrespectful to the military. You know what that sounds like? Support the troops. In the Iraq War, they got all the Republicans to think that the war was a good idea with this dumbass slogan of support the troops. If you supported the troops, you wouldn't send them into harm's way in the first place. You wouldn't go send them to die in Iraq. But they're like, no, if you get the troops killed, that's supporting them. It's just Orwellian propaganda, right? So Massie's right. So, but I thought that the Massie contingent would be very strong and would defend Massie against Trump. Not as strong as I expected. Okay, and I'll be honest about that. But there is a contingent, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first, more of the war.
Okay, so they've reportedly been talking with potential Republican challengers, meaning opponents to Massie, led by Trump, and commissioned a Trump-friendly poll to gauge Massie's support toward Massie in his district in Kentucky. The survey, which was conducted by Trump pollster John McLaughlin, found that 52% would support a Trump-endorsed candidate and 23% support Massie. 87% approved of Trump compared with 52% for Massie. La Civita said in a statement, and La Civita was of course the campaign manager for Trump 2024, Massie's longtime opposition to President Trump's working family tax cuts and really anything to do with President Trump is coming to an end. Thomas Little Boy Massie will be fired. But Massie easily survived primary challengers in the last 3 cycles. We'll see what happens this time around. I have no doubt that the Republicans with the leadership of Trump are gonna try to challenge him again. And he told Axios, quote, any serious person considering running should spend money on an independent poll before letting swampy consultants take them for an embarrassing ride.
Yeah, and so is there a contingent that are anti-war, libertarians, independents, and some sliver of MAGA that are supporting Massie? Definitely, it's a real contingent. and they mean it, and it's great to see. We might disagree on other things, but the fact that they're truly anti-war and for America is a wonderful thing.
And Massie's
is it big enough? We'll find out. I'm going to come back to that in a second.
And Massie's correct, okay? He's worried about the dire straits that America is currently dealing with, okay? $37 trillion in debt. We're spending $1 trillion a year in servicing that debt. And when it comes to those, B-2 bombers, they cost $2.1 billion a piece, and we used 14 bombs. So that's $29.4 billion that we just spent on bombing Iran in one weekend.
Is that the bombs or the bombers? Like, because the planes cost more, the bombs
Each
cost.
B-2 bomber has a price tag of around
no, that's the planes.
2.1 billion. So that doesn't even include the actual bunker buster bombs, which I looked into that cost $3.5 billion a piece.
Wow. Okay, so look, last thing. MAGA is attacking Massie now. So the majority of MAGA is on Trump's side. As far as I can see, that's my read of it. I think that poll is fake, and I'm super curious what's gonna happen to Massie in his primary. If they eliminate Massie, that means if you don't lick Donald Trump's boots, you're 100% eliminated, no matter how honest you are, no matter how principled you are, no matter how America first you are or MAGA you are, it doesn't matter. So that will be a critical race to watch in Kentucky. Massie has his own army, but MAGA is very mad at him now because he upset Daddy. So if you're in the part of MAGA who's upset with Massie for being a principled America First guy, you should be embarrassed. I know you won't be. You'll say, no, Daddy's right, Daddy's right. Okay, go home to Daddy, but Massie's actually anti-war. And it's incredible to see an honest Republican actually mean what they say. And that is what Thomas Massie is in favor of. All right, we've got a bonus episode for the members. We've got more news for you guys. So become a member, hit the join button below, and we're gonna show you Anna's appearance on Piers Morgan. It is enraging, but important. All right, members, we'll see you there.